Hey everybody, it's John. We just finished recording NPC for next week and thought, you know what, we should get this out as soon as possible. So instead of coming out on the 8th as usual, which is a Tuesday, we're putting this episode out now. That means there won't be an episode on the 8th. However, we'll be back to the normal schedule the following Tuesday, April 15th. Thanks for understanding and enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to NPC. That stands for Next Portable Console. In this case, it's most likely going to be a Nintendo Switch 2. My name is Federico and today's show is brought to you by the excellent folks at Amoeba. And I'm joined by, once again, returning co-host, it seems, Mr. Brendon Bigley. Hello, Brendon.
Hello.
And Waluigi.
Guest star Waluigi
Hello,
from the top
Waluigi.
rope. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here for this specific episode.
We're also joined by Mr. John Voorhees. Hello, John.
Hello, I'm also a returning co-host. I think that's the definition of a co-host, Federico, is that we get to return. Brendon and I get to come back every week and talk to you.
I just wanted to stress how fortunate we are that, both you and Brendon are returning every single week.
I love that.
Well, thank you.
It comes
you.
from the heart. I can feel it from across the Atlantic. That
You can feel the
heart.
love.
Yeah.
You can.
When I open Zoom and I see Brendon's face, I'm like, yes, he's back again.
It's finally time.
Today's episode is a very special one. We're obviously going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, the successor of the Nintendo Switch, now officially called the Nintendo Switch 2. It's launching on June 5. We're recording this the day after the official hour-long Nintendo presentation about the Nintendo Switch 2. We've been able to sleep on it, hopefully. I slept last night. I don't know about you guys. I slept.
I finished my day reading those developer interviews. That was how I finished my day.
Same.
Here, a tease for something I'm working on, but I was watching the Assassin's Creed movie last night, and I slept like a baby during that movie.
I bet you did.
That is high praise for the movie.
Sorry, Michael Fassbender.
So in the regular show,
Michael Fassbender, one of Federico's favorites.
one of my favorite actors. This is a
deep
long-running joke, deep cut from my other podcast, Connected. Michael Fassbender, the guy that I don't necessarily believe is an actor, but people tell me he is.
Right, he's an assassin.
Steve Jobs.
And Steve Jobs.
And Steve.
Cold-blooded assassin.
I don't know. We're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, and we thought, so there's a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of thoughts that we have, a lot of details that we want to unpack. We're going to be doing something here. So in the regular show, we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 itself. We're going to be talking about the system, how it works, the things that Nintendo showed off, and in the XL version of NPC for our Patreon members, we're going to be talking about a little bit more about the games, emulation, the Nintendo Switch 1. Is it really emulation? Is it not? And we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of other random things that we collected since yesterday's announcement.
Yeah.
So, the Nintendo Switch 2. So I want to shout out Brendon and Steven did an excellent episode of Into the Aether, sort of with like first reactions to the Nintendo Switch 2.
Yeah.
It's a 2 hours.
2 hours and 22 minutes.
2 hours and 22
About the Switch 2, yes.
So very on brand. So you should also listen to that for some really excellent jokes, as always. Also, what is it that the GL and GR?
Good luck, good run. Yeah.
Nice. We're gonna be talking about that. But all that being said, so the Nintendo Switch 2. First off, I want to lead with this. Sort of just a vibe check. Are the vibes good with both of you? Brendon, what are the vibes for this new Nintendo Switch?
I would say conflicted, leaning positive is where I'm at.
Okay.
I walked away from the event very positive, and it's as more things have come to light afterwards that have me more conflicted.
Okay, John?
I would say that I'm still in the very positive vibe stage. I get where Brendon's coming. I can see. I've seen a lot of the same stuff. It's still, to me, though, walking away from that direct, it was a lot more than I expected. I did not expect this. I did not expect some of the specs that we're going to be talking about. Yeah. It's definitely further down the path than I expected it would be, and so that has me excited. And I'm excited to try Breath of the Wild, and in stunning whatever 1080p or whatever that I'm not sure if that one's
Stunning
4K.
HD.
Yeah, stunning
no, that was
full
getting
HD.
4K, I think. We'll talk about it.
Okay. All right, that's good. All right, well, let's move on. But I'm pretty good about it. I feel pretty good about it. How about you, Federico?
Yeah, I feel very good about it. I think the only downside is, of course, the pricing. Not necessarily even the pricing of the console itself. There's only so much I think that you can do if you are a corporation and you want to have a certain margin on the console, and the console has 120 hertz refresh rate, a bigger display, and a more premium feel and fancier NVIDIA tech that we're going to talk about. My main issue is the pricing of the games, specifically when you convert the pricing of a Mario Kart, which is going to be $80, and that becomes more than 90 euros in for me in Italy. That has me a little, I hope that, and I understand the macroeconomic aspects working possibly against Nintendo right now, especially given everything that's happening in the United States. I understand that. But still, it feels like a pretty big ask if you're a 12-year-old and you're like, Mom, will you buy me the new Mario Kart? But it's $80.
Can I also note that something I learned this morning is that that's $80 for the digital version, and if you want a physical one, it's $10 more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? And I just actually read something about this not that long ago, that this is, at least in the U.S., this is driven largely by tariffs, that physical media is going to end up costing a lot more in the United States because of the tariffs that were just imposed.
Yeah.
I think it goes beyond the games too, Federico. I think it goes to the accessories, which we'll get to. There's just a lot of potential add-on cost here if you really want to get deep into the Switch 2.
Yeah. So that's overall, I would say I am extremely pumped about this console, and the idea of even not the new games obviously, but the idea of replaying some of my older favorites. We're going to be talking about this on XL. So the Switch 2 itself, I want to start right here. There's a full-blown tech specs page, and in the Direct, I think there was a bigger focus on just the technicalities of the Nintendo Switch 2 in a way that wasn't necessarily the case with the Switch 1 in 2017.
Yeah.
No, with the Switch 1, the idea was so novel, and it quickly became clear that it was kind of underpowered and kind of using older hardware. It seems to me I'm not saying that Nintendo is using cutting edge tech here, although there's an argument to be made for some features that we'll get to in a minute, but for sure, a bigger focus on this is what the hardware looks like. We're going to give you and straight into the main thing here. So they published this tech specs page saying it's powered by a custom NVIDIA processor. That's not necessarily new information. We knew from the leaks that it was going to be based on a relatively new system on a chip by NVIDIA that supports a whole bunch of modern AI and machine learning stuff. But it's also going to be bigger. So 7.9 inch display. This is going to be an LCD panel with 120 hertz refresh rate. HDR, specifically HDR10, variable refresh rate, which I was not expecting, and obviously 1080p resolution on the panel itself, with support for up to 4K when docked with the beefier, chunkier, has a fan inside now, Nintendo Switch 2 dock. I am fascinated by this display, specifically because I was not expecting Nintendo. So I was expecting Nintendo to go from 720p on the display itself to 1080.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was not. I was expecting LCD because we know Nintendo, they're gonna love double dipping in a few years with the Nintendo Switch 2 OLED. But I was not expecting 120 hertz, HDR, and variable refresh rate.
Yeah.
And especially HDR, because HDR with an LCD panel gets
tricky.
Weird, gets tricky very fast. So the way that not to get too technical here, but basically HDR, it gives you greater control over the individual areas of the image so that you can make certain parts of the image brighter, other parts much darker. And that works really well with an OLED display because in an OLED panel, every single component of the display pixel can light up or dim on its own. You also see HDR, for example, on MacBook Pros or the older generation iPad Pro. Those are mini LED displays. And on a mini LED display, you have these dimming areas. Basically, you have this sometimes dozens, sometimes hundreds of local areas of the display that you can individually, so we're not talking on a pixel by pixel level, we're talking on an area of the display, and you can turn that down or you can turn that up based on the HDR spec that you're following. With LCD, well, you're always going to have backlighting, first of all, because LCD needs backlighting. Otherwise, you're not going to see anything on screen. So how do you do HDR with backlighting? There's a few different techniques that you can implement. I am dying to know what Nintendo figured out to make HDR happen on an LCD panel.
Yeah, because LCDs don't do the individual pixel dimming, the problem you run into with LCDs is blooming. And that's potentially what we'll see with HDR, because even if they're using zones, the zones are not tied to a single pixel. They're dozens or hundreds or thousands of pixels. So that can cause blooming if you have like a dark area and a light area, and you've brightened up the dark area, but there happens to be a light area in the middle of it, and that extra light is shining through with the light area. So that we'll have to see how that turns out to be in practice.
Yeah. But overall, and this is what I want to ask you guys, like just the console itself, like, and also like I watched some of the hands-on videos as of this morning. It seems like Nintendo held a press event in New York yesterday where members of the press were able to actually play with the Nintendo Switch and related accessories. It seems like all the videos that I've seen and the articles that I've read, they all mentioned that the display, despite being LCD, it looked really great. And that was like also something that I published yesterday on Blue Sky. Like, it doesn't necessarily matter if you have an LCD panel and a really well-calibrated LCD panel with well-done backlighting, you can get a lot of mileage out of an LCD display. I mean, just look at the Legion Go.
That was exactly what I was going to say. The Legion Go is a great example of that.
And that's not OLED, that's not mini LED. So all these specs taken together, they seem to suggest like a much higher end console that is maybe moving away from the usual, it's a toy, Nintendo philosophy.
Yes.
What do you guys think about this?
I think they had to, given the price that they're charging. I mean, I think they have to push the tech specs because, as we talked about before, once you get up to $500 in that range, you're going to get compared to the PS5, and the Xbox. So to me, part of the messaging here was we're charging $450 and $500 for this device, but it is a device that can play the same caliber of games that you're going to find from Sony and Microsoft. So I think that's part of the reason why the tech specs probably played a bigger role than they have in the past. In terms of the specs themselves, I'm really happy with this. I think the screen, to me, obviously the screen's one of the most important aspects of this. I mean, jury's still out. We'll have to see how it looks in reality and in the real world, but it sounds like a really good display. And if they did a good job like Lenovo has done with the Legion Go, it could be really great, even though it's not OLED, which would probably be a little bit better. I think the other thing that's interesting, and we should talk about a little bit too, is that the Joy-Con have been redesigned. I mean, they're taller, obviously, because we have a bigger screen. And there was some interesting tidbits in the developer interviews about how they reworked those to change the triggers to make it to keep it so that it is comfortable to hold and not cramp your hands by having to reach too far up the device in order to use the triggers.
It seems like a lot of the hands-on impressions that we've seen so far seem to say that it does feel pretty comfortable in the hand still, which was a big concern for me, honestly.
Because it is quite taller, right?
And the initial Switch was so flat and has been so flat, and I would not really consider it to be a very ergonomic device, especially depending on what kinds of games you're trying to play. And that's where you get into the realm of all these accessory manufacturers trying to make, more ergonomic Joy-Cons, which obviously lose some of the core functionality of what makes a Joy-Con work. The thing that I'm really interested in is these first impressions we're seeing of mouse control, which is the official name for what we were calling mouse mode before, which seems to be largely negative. Most people who are...
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I saw the IGN video. They said they loved it.
Oh, really?
In Metroid
The Verge
Prime.
did not.
So The Verge did not. So I watched the IGN hands-on video, and they actually a couple of interesting details about that. So the IGN folks, they were able to test it on the proper hands-on area, which was like a desk with a proper mouse pad, like a giant mouse pad on it. And so when you attach the Joy-Con strap, that has little mouse feet on the strap itself. So that helps with gliding. However, it seems like Nintendo reps at the event actually said to a couple of people, encouraged those people to try it on different surfaces. And they mentioned that the system is going to work even if you slide the Joy-Con on your leg.
That's what the Verge
if you're sitting down,
yeah.
If you're sitting down and you want to slide it on your lap, it's going to work. And in the IGN video, they actually tried to slide it on their hands, and it was awkward, but it worked. So, and they mentioned that, like, I think it mostly comes down to the size of your hands, and I'm sure there will be plenty of attachments to make the mouse control like a little bit more ergonomic, because those things are tiny. Like, personally, when I use a mouse, I prefer a vertical mouse. I'm sure there will be tons of third-party attachments. But they mentioned that, like, one of the other interesting details, when you set down the Joy-Con to use mouse control, you don't have to go into a menu. You don't have to manually switch anything in the game. The game instantly recognizes that you're putting down the Joy-Con and displays a reticule on screen to immediately switch you to PC mode, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah. So... Yeah, so...
you know what I'm imagining, Federico? I'm imagining people around the world doing this on the arms of their couches, and couches all getting worn out from rubbing Joy-Con on them.
I think like we're gonna see this weird golden era of accessory manufacturers making lap desks. I think like that's a given.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some kind of like hoary branded lap desk
for sure,
and
ergonomic things to put the Joy-Con in, so it looks and feels a lot more like a mouse.
Yeah, like a real ergonomic mouse. I think circling back to what you were saying before, though, Federico, about the idea of Nintendo kind of moving away from like toy mentality.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest takeaways, I think, from specifically the display technology here. Like, I really feel like you would not be pushing at 120 hertz and variable refresh rate if you were not thinking we are now competing more along the lines of a Microsoft or a PlayStation. Like, it feels to me like Nintendo is very much beating to the march of its own drum for years and years and years, from like the GameCube on, basically. You know, the GameCube was kind of like the last time they were trying to be one of the big three. And then as soon as you get to the Nintendo Wii, it's like, okay, we're going a completely different direction. Yeah. And that's been the case for a long time. I don't think I see Nintendo as seeing themselves as competitors against Microsoft and PlayStation here. I think of them as being so confident that they're like, we can take them on also. It's not like, oh, we're on the back foot, we need to compete against these consoles. It's more so that like the Nintendo Switch was such a big deal that they're like, we can extend this lead even further by making the Switch again, but so powerful that it actually usurps the other consoles in the process. We can beat them at their own game and continue playing ours.
Right. I think it's also a shot across the bow for Valve. I mean, this is a competitor to the Steam Deck, because I have to imagine that a lot of people have done what we have, which is, you know, moved a lot of their indie gaming and third-party gaming to the Steam Deck from the Nintendo Switch. I haven't bought a third-party game on the Switch in quite a while, and this is going to reinvigorate that market, I think.
Yeah, I think it's worth considering that like the Steam Deck and the PC handheld market is still relatively small, right? It's like, a couple million units have sold of the Steam Deck, which
Nintendo is going to outsell the Steam Deck in
I think it's going to be
months.
good for the Steam Deck market in the end, because it's just going to get more people involved in more, I don't know, more sophisticated games on handhelds. Though, you know, I think it's going to have a bit of a halo effect for the Windows.
I think so too, especially with mouse control, right? Like as soon as you start including things like the ability to play things with mouse control, you get into a space where making your stuff for the Nintendo Switch is a first priority, and then obviously you would also release it on something like the Steam Deck.
I had a thought that like about the idea of Nintendo, like maybe us being surprised that Nintendo's going to be more premium all of a sudden. I feel like, so if you're Nintendo, and let's say you're running this mental calculus, like you're saying, okay, so let's imagine a 10-year-old kid that, this 10-year-old that 8 years ago got a Nintendo Switch. Now the same person, stuck with the Nintendo Switch. Now the same person is 18, and maybe they're getting their first job. They have their first money saved. They become a little bit more of a gaming, expert, so to speak. Like they're looking for something more than a Nintendo Switch. They're looking for specs. They're looking for a Steam Deck. They're looking for a portable PC. Like I feel like Nintendo being able to follow that generation and saying, look, you bought a Nintendo Switch 8 years ago, you were 10, now you're 18, maybe you're getting your first job, maybe going off to college. We are giving you a Nintendo Switch that is not going to make you miss like like a base model Xbox or an ROG Ally or a Steam Deck. So sort of growing up along those kids is an angle that I think Nintendo thought about for sure.
I would think so. And you could also see them then putting out a Switch Lite too that would be more for the younger kids that doesn't do quite as much.
Which I know Brendon is already looking forward to.
I'm so excited for the Nintendo Switch 2 Lite, whatever that ends up being. I think that's going to be my favorite console ever made. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah. A few more things about the system that I want to share.
Yes.
So the 2 USB-C ports. So, by the way, parentheses, all the leaks were correct.
Yeah,
by the way.
No, big time.
Shout out to, because I don't see people giving credit where it's due. Shout out to Next Handheld, that anonymous leaker from a few months ago, who was absolutely spot on with all the leaks, with the console, with the colors, with the dock, with the dual USB-C ports, everything.
I also like most of that Bloomberg reporting from years ago was true.
That's true.
To be clear, all that stuff that people were like, the only thing they got wrong was the release date, basically. Everything else ended up being basically 100% accurate, which I think is worth mentioning. I think they did say that there was going to be an OLED panel on here, and maybe 2 years ago there was. Who knows?
So the 2 USB-C ports, what's interesting here is that obviously you can use them both for charging,
right,
which is nice, since you will be able to, there's a new kickstand that supports multiple degrees of orientation. So when you set down the console on a desk or on a table, maybe because you want to use mouse mode or mouse control, you will be able to charge the console from the top, given that the bottom port is likely going to be inaccessible. But you can also use the top USB-C port for accessories, and specifically the camera. So there's going to be a Nintendo Switch 2 camera that integrates with some of the features like game chat, for example. That is basically what if Discord, but done by Nintendo. And by the way, another parenthesis here, this is obviously, and I think this is also something that you and Steven touched upon in Into the Aether, this is obviously like a pandemic feature that is coming out a couple of years too late at this point probably, but it kind of reminds me of Apple coming out with SharePlay a full year after the pandemic.
Right.
This is how these things work. Regardless, Nintendo getting into voice chat and video chat, and they're going to sell their own camera. But it appears that this USB-C port will support any camera. You can, in fact, we already know of a bunch of third-party cameras. There's an incredible one by Hori, which is a piranha plant from Super Mario camera, which I'm totally going to buy that.
I love that the mouth opens and closes too. So when you're not using it, you can close the mouth.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's great.
You will be able to plug in any USB-C video camera. Now, obviously, when you talk to me, I have done my research when it comes to USB-C video cameras.
Of course,
I will put money on the table and say they will simply support the UVC video standard, which is basically video over USB for webcams and video cameras. Yeah. And all this to say, in 2 months, we will do something here, and we will record the evidence. I will be playing Mario Kart with you guys, and we will enable game chat, and we will enable video, and you will see me coming from the video feed of a Game Boy camera, because I know it's going to work. I know it's going to work.
I love this. My God.
I am going to connect my Game Boy camera, my original Game Boy camera, to my analog pocket. Then I will run the analog pocket to an HDMI capture card, and I will plug the HDMI capture card into the Nintendo, into the Switch 2, the Switch 2, and you will see me playing Mario Kart with the Game Boy camera.
I love it. I love it. That's fantastic.
This is the NPC promise to the listeners. So pretty cool.
I think
We
it's
don't know the
worth-
charging.
I think it's worth noting too, Federico, that the camera is for more than just the chat. It's also, it can be used in
For
gameplay
games,
because
yeah.
it's in the Jamboree game. You know, you can stack things on your head and
It's
do all
so
sorts of silly
PlayStation
stuff.
iToy. It's like it's just
Yes.
the return of iToy, which rocks.
It also kind of reminded me of Connect from
Yeah.
Xbox.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
many years ago.
Yeah,
Speaking of that, what will be interesting to see if you can use any camera you want, but if some games depend on subject isolation from the video feed, here's my theory. My other theory. I think Nintendo, when it comes to sort of person recognition and segmentation, like being able to isolate your face or your body from the background, or the voice isolation, because the Nintendo Switch 2 also has a built-in microphone
Right.
that's going to support voice isolation with noise cancellation so that it can cut down on background noise and just concentrate on your voice. I think they're using NVIDIA tech for this.
Yeah.
NVIDIA on PC has, I don't know what they're called, like, is it called RTX audio and RTX video?
Maybe.
They have APIs for noise cancellation and I think sort of subject fragmentation in video cameras. I think they're just using like NVIDIA tech for this, but obviously they didn't mention that.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when you plug in a third-party camera. Like when I plug in my Game Boy camera, will it be able to blur my background? I don't
luck.
think
I would
so.
guess
I don't
not.
think
Yeah.
so.
I would expect you're going to need at least a 1080p camera for that, Federico. But yeah, it makes a
Probably,
lot of sense that
probably.
it's NVIDIA tech since it's in, you know, it's an NVIDIA system on a chip, and that stuff is probably built with those, built to spec for those APIs.
Brendon, I have a, I don't know why,
Mhm.
but I have a feeling that you're the kind of person who is into the idea of game share.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think this is a thing we maybe even talked about recently on an XL
Maybe.
segment, but I loved the era of the Game Boy Advance and specifically the Nintendo DS doing a thing where one person needed to own the game
Yeah.
physically. And then if you connected to other consoles, like locally, you would be able to, share the game and play it multiplayer, which was nice. And sometimes it would be like, a limited version. So I remember Mario Kart Super Circuit specifically on the Game Boy Advance. If you plugged that in to somebody else's Game Boy Advance with a link cable, they could only play as Shy Guy. They couldn't like select
Yes.
other
Yeah.
characters, things like that. But yeah, they're introducing that same idea digitally with the Nintendo Switch 2, which I think is really fascinating. And it's only going to work with certain games at launch. They have a list of games on their website right now, which will get game share capabilities. Things like Clubhouse Games, 51 Worldwide Classics, New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe, I think is what that full title is. Games like that have like great local multiplayer will have game share, which is really nice. Interestingly, it's also going to have online support as well. And that was the thing I was like really, really surprised by, because I think locally is a no-brainer, right? Like if you have multiple friends over and you want to be playing those games, like it makes a lot of sense. But being able to say like only one of us needs to pay the $90 for a physical copy of Mario Kart World. They haven't actually confirmed that Mario Kart World is going to have game share, just to be clear. But, or maybe they did, I don't know. But if game share is coming to Mario Kart World, saying like only one of us needs to buy it and then both of us can play it, albeit only in multiplayer, you can't have like a single player experience. That's interesting. I think that's like in a Nintendo Direct filled with sticker shock over and over and over and over again. That was a kind of bright spot, I think.
Yeah. And you can initiate the game share session from a Nintendo Switch 2 only, but people with the Nintendo Switch 1 or 2 can receive the games. So basically what I'm saying is that you just need to have a rich friend. You just need to have the one rich friend with the Nintendo Switch 2 and the game, and you just bring over your Nintendo Switch 1 and take advantage of your rich friend. That's all you need to do with game share. Game chat, I mean, cool, like I don't think I will like
we're reaching feature parity with the Xbox 360 here.
Yeah.
Right.
Essentially yes. So I am obviously very much looking forward to a Digital Foundry breakdown of this console and the performance. We don't know anything essentially right now. Nintendo didn't come out and say, "Oh, we're gonna have AI-powered upscaling to 4." We don't even know. Like, is it actually gonna render games at native 4K?
We have no idea.
I highly doubt it that they're gonna render
Yeah.
games at 4K native. I think there's gonna be some upscaling involved.
Yeah.
I don't think Nintendo will ever publicize this as a with a public name
Right.
as a feature.
Yeah.
I think it's just gonna happen behind the scenes. In terms of the system, there's a I wanted to talk about this idea of the game key cards, which is not. It's not necessarily a new thing. I think it's with in PlayStation world. I think it's happened for a while where you buy the physical game, but in the physical game, the game is not actually inside. They give you a key to download, like a digital key to download the game from the digital store. This is also going to happen with the Nintendo Switch 2 for some games, and the differences here are kind of confusing. So it seems like Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition will come out with the physical game card with the entire game, 64 gigabytes, fitting on the game card. But some other games will require the game key card, which gives you essentially like a physical game card that you plug in physically into your console, into your Nintendo Switch 2, but then you gotta go to the eShop and put in a digital key to download the game. So basically, the game key card is acting as a physical access token almost to ensure ownership of your game.
Right.
Kind of sad, but I think we're obviously moving away from physical media at this point. Even though the Nintendo Switch 2 will have physical games, they will cost more, as John mentioned, and they will be backwards compatible with Switch 1 games. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the games in XL. Not every single game will necessarily work on the Nintendo Switch 2, but the game cards of the Switch 2 will be red instead of black. I wonder if they will still taste bitter, like
Good
the original
question.
Switch.
Good
They
question.
didn't talk
Game
about the
cards.
taste. I think one of the most important things about the Nintendo Direct is what they didn't talk about, and they sure didn't talk about the taste.
Yeah, they didn't talk. Nobody had the courage to take a little game card and slip it on their tongue. Nobody did.
You would have thought they would have brought
Nobody did.
Miyamoto out for that, don't you think? Bring him out and have him lick a cartridge.
That would have been incredible.
They should have let us into the hands-on demos. Is all I'm saying.
The first thing we would have done.
Yeah.
First thing we would have done, just a little slip of the tongue on the game.
Just a little taste.
Just a little taste, just a little nib, so to speak. I want to talk about the new Pro Controller before we talk about the launch and wrap up. It looks like the Pro Controller, but I highly recommend our listeners and viewers go read the Ask the Developers series that Nintendo has published on Nintendo.com. It's a 4-part article you can get through them in 30 minutes. And they talk about some of the behind the scenes of the making of the Nintendo Switch 2. And there are some interesting tidbits, such as, for example, and I'm just going to quote here, the grip handles, so the grips of the Pro Controller, this time were designed with reference to the Nintendo GameCube controller. Like, I'm sorry, but sign me up. Like, the GameCube controller is, in my opinion, the greatest controller ever made. And not only is there going to be a GameCube controller for Nintendo Classics on Nintendo Switch 2, again, we're going to talk about that later, but the Pro Controller, the grip design is inspired by the GameCube? Okay, thank you, Nintendo. I mean, and there's a C button. There's also a C button on the Pro Controller.
And a headphone jack.
An headphone jack?
Yeah.
And
Which is my favorite edition, personally.
Yeah, I think that's a big one.
Yes.
Any controller with a headphone jack is immediately better to me. Yes.
They got rid of the seams on the grips too, where it joins the body. It just looks nicer, and it probably feels better in the hand.
And those seams, after a lot of time, they got kind of gross.
Yeah.
With a lot of dirt, a lot of grime would get into those seams, so you would have to clean it up. So it's all flush now, which looks very nice. And there's also the programmable back pedals, the GLGR buttons, which I hope they won't be easy to accidentally press, because that's always an issue for me. I very rarely take advantage of programmable buttons on the back of controllers. I hope they're not easy to figure out.
Ash Parrish at The Verge said that they weren't easy to accidentally press during their hands-on videos.
That's good.
So that's one person at least.
I to this day still believe that the Nintendo Switch Pro controller is the best controller
I like it a lot too.
It's at least my favorite personally. So anything that makes that controller better is a plus in my book. the main negative is that the analog sticks are not Hall effect or anything. So all of the Pro controllers that I've ever bought have eventually failed on me, and I've stopped using them, and I've stopped buying them for that reason. And I'm hopeful. And again, another thing Nintendo did not talk about during the Nintendo Switch event is what's going on with the Joy-Cons in terms of like the tech, because they wouldn't. That's not a thing that they would mention.
In the Direct, they only said we made them bigger.
Yes.
In the Ask the Developer articles, they said we made them bigger and more durable.
Interesting.
They used this
and
adjective
quieter
to describe
too. I
them.
think they said quieter about the thumbsticks.
Quieter, so that when you slide them off to the side, they don't make that clicky sound, and more durable. So whatever that means.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's Hall effect. So like, there's gonna be plenty to talk about the hardware, like especially like in terms of technical breakdowns. How do these games actually run? The differences between playing in portable mode versus playing in dock mode. What's gonna be the best HDMI cable that you're supposed to buy? Like these are all questions that we will answer on this show at some point. I do want to talk about the launch. So
Federico, we have a sponsor this episode.
Oh, we should thank the sponsor.
Yes, I would like to thank our good friends at Rogue Amoeba, who make apps for the Mac for all of your audio needs. You can go and learn more about these apps by going to macaudio.com/macstories. I want to shout out a couple of their apps. One is SoundSource, which is a great app for directing sound on your Mac. You have a sound system, I guess applet in system settings that lets you pick outputs, but SoundSource does so much more because it lets you apply effects. It lets you route sound from particular apps to particular outputs. Lots and lots of ways that you can manipulate the sound on your Mac using SoundSource. Another big one is, of course, Audio Hijack, which all three of us are using right now to record this audio. It's a great app that I've been using for 10 years now to record podcasts, but you can do a lot more than that because you can record any audio coming through your Mac, whether it's coming through, Safari or any other app that you have, and record it very easily using a very intuitive system for building blocks to create your workflows. And then there's also Loopback, which lets you create virtual sound devices. That is a really wild one that I think for people who are doing more advanced stuff with podcasts or video streaming, Loopback is perfect for that.
Loopback is like indispensable as a tool for streaming, I will say. Like if you want to be streaming from the Mac, it is absolutely the best way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I know you use it. And Farrago is another app that's a soundboard for your Mac, which you can, use sounds that you collect yourself or the ones that are built in, and you can play them during a podcast or a stream or whatever you happen to want to do. All of Rogue Amoeba's apps are fully functional free trials, so you can check them out and see if they fit with your workflows. And with recent updates, there's no more difficulty getting them installed. You don't have to do restarts, add extensions, or do any kind of system setting stuff. They just work right out of the box, which is fantastic. And best of all, during the month of April, you can save 20% off your purchase by using the coupon code MS2504 at checkout. That's the letters M and S and the numbers 2504 MS2504 at checkout to get 20% off. Visit macaudio.com/macstories today to learn more and get started. Thanks to Rogue Amoeba for powering our audio needs on the Mac and for supporting NPC. Thanks, Rogue Amoeba.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're the reason I switched to Mac. I love you.
All right, we should talk about the launch.
Let's talk about the launch.
Let's do it.
So when is it coming? When is it coming out, John?
June. It's coming out on June the 5th, which is right before, in my world, WWDC. So I'm hoping to get my hot little hands on this for my trip out to San Francisco. We'll be able to do pre-orders next week on the 9th. And Nintendo's got this crazy convoluted pre-order system from their website. You'll be able to, I guess, let's break this down. Next week
wild,
on the 9th. It's not simple. It's very Nintendo. Next week, you'll be able to do pre-orders from retailers like Best Buy or whomever it happens to be. that is probably the simplest way to try to get a Switch right out of the box. Nintendo is also taking pre-orders from its website, but they're not going to let people know whether they're eligible for a pre-order, which we'll get to, until May. Does somebody have the date? I think it's like May 8th or 9th, something like that. I think that the emails will go out. But in order to be eligible to do a pre-order through Nintendo, they've implemented a bunch of restrictions that are designed, I think, to thwart scalpers. Mm-hmm. So you have to have been a Nintendo Online member for a certain amount of time.
2 years, two consecutive years.
2 consecutive years. And I think about that, and I think there might have been a time when I let my subscription lapse that I just don't remember. I've been on and off since pretty much the beginning, but I don't remember if I let it lapse at any point in there.
You can't be a member of a family plan. You have to be the owner of a family plan.
Yes.
The owner, yeah.
Yes, that you have to be the person who actually set up the account.
Yeah, which does doom 7 of my closest friends. I'm so sorry.
That's a shame. That's a shame. You have to have played a certain number of hours of games on your Switch. And
50, it's confirmed.
50 hours is confirmed, which when it says the original Switch, do you guys know whether that means like the true, like your first Switch or all of your Switch? Like what does this mean for people who like bought the OLED Switch or bought a Switch Lite? Is this aggregate? Is this the first one? Do you have any idea?
I would assume it's aggregate. I would assume it's across your account. Like it's just for the same way they're pulling the like your year in Nintendo at the end of the year, like a Spotify Wrapped and emailing it to you. I imagine it's that data being pulled from your account in general.
I think so too, but it hasn't been super clear. Are there any other limitations? I think that those are the key ones.
Yeah, they're. You need to be opted into promotional emails.
Oh yeah,
yes.
I had to do
and
that.
Sharing data with Nintendo as well.
Yes, which are all settings on the Nintendo Switch, and I was not signed up for emails, so now I have I have signed up for marketing emails just so I can pre-order a Switch in case I'm not able to get one from Best Buy or somewhere else.
Can I also shout out a specific hitch which impacts me specifically, which is in Japan, they're releasing 2 versions of the Nintendo Switch. I think mainly to prevent people from like importing them due to the yen being so low currently. Mm-hmm. So there's a version of the Nintendo Switch that only has Japanese language support that's going to be $340, which is, a great deal. If you're a person who speaks Japanese, you're going to have a great deal on that. But if you're in Japan and you want to buy a version that works worldwide, it is $460. So it is $10 more than it would be in the US, for example. This is a problem for me because the Switch 2 comes out on June 5th, and I will be living in Tokyo for a month starting on June 4th. So I need to find some way to pre-order a Nintendo Switch in Japan and have it
in English.
Yes, make sure it's a worldwide edition, and then have it sent to where I'll be living in Tokyo for the month. Which that's like, look. One thing, for people who know me very well, one of my talents is the ability to find things that are hard to find. Like I'm very good at like, if a thing is difficult to acquire, I am a person who can get it. This is like reaching the limits of what I'm capable of here.
This is really going to test your skills.
Is this a power or is this a superpower? We're going to find out over the next couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope we can get you some help in Japan, like some guidance.
Yes.
I think right now, the likelihood of getting our hands on the Switch day one, Federico has a lock because you have a...
Hello?
You have a lock.
As soon as the event wrapped up yesterday, took my phone and I sent...
a text to Mario.
Sent this audio message, not to Marco, not Mario.
I have Mario.
I sent an audio message to my friend Marco, video game store owner in my hometown of Viterbo, Italy, And I said, Marco, I just finished watching the Nintendo presentation. Put me down on the list for people who want a Nintendo Switch 2 on day one with all the accessories that you can get. That was my audio message.
Love that.
And
oh my God, that's so good.
He replied a couple of hours later. And he was like, Federico, I already knew. So you were already on the list. It's like, perfect. Thank you. And I don't want to jinx it, but chances are pretty good that just like in 2017, I got the Nintendo Switch original one 2 days before the official street date.
Oh my God.
You know, knock on wood and everything. I hope I can get it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yes.
We'll
so
see.
So
But
you're
I think
he's alive.
I should be safe.
Yeah, Federico
Yeah.
should be safe. I'm going to be playing trying to get pre-orders in on multiple websites, and Brendon, we just don't know. Big question mark.
No idea.
Yeah.
I've managed to pull this out in the past. When the first Switch came out, I had one pre-ordered for myself, and then I remember on launch day, I went and brought it to my parents' house to show my dad because Breath of the Wild came out, and he's a Zelda fan. And I was like, "Hey, check this out!" And he was like, "I would play that." And then I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna get you a Nintendo Switch today." And I went out and I came back with a Nintendo Switch that day, on launch day.
Not an easy thing to do.
Not an easy thing to do. I did that with that. I did it with the Nintendo Wii. Maybe I can do it again.
All right.
Maybe I can do it
All
again.
right. Well, I think this is about it for this episode of NPC. We're going to be talking about the games, the backwards compatibility, and some other stuff in NPC XL for our Patreon members. John, where can people find the show notes, us, all the things we do?
Well, they can go to Patreon and sign up for NPC XL. That would be fantastic. Just search for NPC, Next Portable Console there. You can also find Brendon Bigley over at wavelengths.online. And Federico and I are over at macstories.net. All of us are on social media. Just search for our names. You'll find us in all the usual places. That's it for today, folks. Thanks for listening and watching. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.